Yeah. Oh yeah, Tony. It's about to start off. Let's do it. What's up, everybody? Annabelle here, and you're watching Dreams to Reality Podcast. This is episode 51 here in the beautiful city of Pasadena, California. In the house, we have a business owner, a holistic practitioner, and the mother of the great Tony the Conqueror Cortez to my right. She is the owner of Bee's Natural Store in Apple Valley, California. So if you're in the high desert, as I like to call it, check it out. If you're looking for better health or alternative medicine, please check out our guest, the great Beatrice Rivas. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to the show. Should I call you Bee? Should I call you Beatrice or Beatrice? What do you prefer?
B.
B. Awesome. Well, welcome to the show, B.
Thank you.
How's your day been today?
Good.
What does the day-to-day of a holistic practitioner and mother of an MMA superstar look like for you?
I have no words for that.
No words?
It's a lot.
All right. Yeah, so you know what? I'm very curious in learning a little bit more about you and your story. I've known Tony now for, how long has it been, a year?
Yeah.
Probably about a year now. The first time I became aware of Tony was on Instagram. I was just scrolling through my Explorer page, and then I saw one of his clips where he knocked out that guy in like 5 seconds. And I think he had just had that fight. And I was looking through his page. I was like, man, this guy's a monster. And I started looking through his page, and I would hear him like talk and different stuff. So I found him very interesting, you know. And I, just like we talked about right before I hit record, that I see raw potential in people. I saw that in Tony, so I reached out to him. I invited him on the podcast. And once I heard his story, I knew there was a lot more depth to him. And he was very evolved and mature emotionally and spiritually. And he thanked that all to you, you know. Yeah. And ever since I've known Tony, anytime that, you know, people ask him about his growth as not only a fighter, but as a person, as a spirit, he always mentions you, and he always brings it back to you being the person that brought him back from the darkness, you know, and how you are one of the people that started the healing of your generational trauma. You know, he mentions that you had a crazy upbringing, but I really don't know anything about you. So I'm very curious, because he has a crazy story in general. So I'm sure you do as well. But now you are a holistic practitioner. You're mentioning that you do ceremonies with plant medicine. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about, you know, what got you into this field, and a little bit more about it, because I'm ignorant about it. I don't really know much other than little things here and there.
Yeah. So what brought me to plant medicine is actually a long story. So when I met my husband, I met him one time. And
you met him one time?
One time. We went to go eat at an Argentinian restaurant, and then he said, "You're going to be my wife." And I was like, this guy's
on the first date?
On our first date.
Oh my God. How did you feel? Because most girls will run away.
I blocked him.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
I blocked him, but then I was like, wait, what if it's true, you know? So then I unblocked him, but then he was on.
Does he know that? Or is this the first time he's going to find, like, damn, she blocked me?
No, he knows that.
Okay.
And then he went back to his country, which was Peru.
Okay.
And then I, moved
So your
on.
husband's Peruvian, and are you Salvadorian or Mexican?
My parents are from El Salvador, but I was born here.
Oh, okay.
States,
Okay, so you are the Salvadorian side,
I'm
too.
The Salvadorian
because I know he's
side
half Mexican and half Salvadorian.
He's half. Yeah.
You're like, his good half is Salvadorian.
Yeah. The violent.
Oh, that's the violent one?
Half.
Shit, I thought it was the Mexican one was the violent one.
If he can fight with a machete, he would.
Oh, okay. He's all violence. I'm just kidding.
He is.
Yeah, he's a monster. Yeah. So go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, no, it's okay. And so I got a free flight. Going to Hawaii. On our way back from Hawaii, they give us a free flight because we got stranded in Hawaii. And so I was like, fuck it, I'm going to go to Peru. Yeah. And so I go to Peru, but on my way to Peru, the girl that sat next to me, her name is Anita, and she was a facilitator in an ayahuasca ceremony place in Peru in the jungle. Yeah. And she talked about ayahuasca for 6 hours and how great this medicine was.
The whole flight there.
The whole flight. We even drank wine, like if we knew each other. Okay. And so I wrote in a piece of paper, and I was like, ayahuasca.
Was this the first time you ever heard of ayahuasca?
That was my first time.
And how old were you?
That's a good question. Like 35?
35?
35.
Because the reason I ask is because I first became aware of the word ayahuasca probably maybe like 10 years ago. So I was probably like 25 or so. And I think in today's age, it's a little bit more common to hear about, it's not common, but it's more common to hear about plant medicine and how people take ayahuasca or all these different types of plant medicine, even mushrooms, they use it as a spiritual way of facing trauma, and other types of medicines. But before it was all looked at as like woo-woo and kind of weird stuff. So it wasn't very common for someone to be sitting next to you and talking to you about this stuff.
Yeah, it's more like they see it as Americans go to another country to get high.
Yeah, exactly.
That was my husband's first reaction when I showed him ayahuasca. He was like, damn Americans, they just come to my country to get high.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I want that.
It sounds fun.
I actually wanted because I had a lot of traumas growing up. So I heard that it was great for traumas. Okay. And I had never tried a psychedelic. Yeah. So going to Peru a year after I married my husband and 3 months into our marriage, I booked myself to go with Anita, the girl that I met in the flight, you know? And my husband's like, you don't even know her. I was like, I didn't even know you either. And I married you.
Yeah. You're like, I didn't even block her, by the way. You got blocked.
You got blocked for 3 days.
That's funny. You're like, I need to put her on my top 5 on MySpace.
Yeah. But that was my first ayahuasca journey. And I stayed out there and I had 3 beautiful ceremonies. And I didn't get to stay the 12 days like I wanted to because of work. And so when I came back, it felt like the person that went to Peru and came back was not the same person anymore. I had left a lot of things and traumas there. It's like I knew the traumas were there, but I no longer felt them.
Okay. So this is interesting to me because I've never taken any type of plant medicine. And the more and more I hear about it, the more it piques my interest because I think everyone, most people have some type of trauma, whether it is as a child or as an adolescent or as an adult. You go through relationships, you go through, bad marriages. Maybe your parents were abusive to you or siblings or something happens in your life. It could even be as simple as a teacher, and people carry this trauma with them throughout their life. And it's so weird because when we go out into the world, it looks like people are living externally, but they're really all living internally. Everybody has a little guy in their head or multiple people in their head talking to them negatively, and it's weird. If you're not aware of it, it could really destroy your life. And these traumas that you're talking about as a kid are one of those voices in your head that when you try to do certain things, they talk negatively for you. And I've heard that the process of, taking these plant medicines makes you face these things that you kind of put off.
It was more like facing yourself and these ideas or persons that you create of yourself, like people that have anxiety and depression. We create that.
Explain that.
So we create these fears, these traumas. It's more like a perspective in the way we see things, because like I was listening to somebody talk about it the other day that you remembering something for your childhood doesn't necessarily mean that it's real. But we create that in our mind, and we make it so real that we start feeling it. Yeah. So anxiety, depression, and things like that, it's fears that we create ourselves of something that we don't want to accept the reality or we don't want to confront that. Yeah. So we start creating fear within ourselves, Yeah. So when I did ayahuasca, my biggest fear was losing my kids. And that was the first thing that I got to experience.
So when you took it, you experienced losing your children? Like it was a hallucination?
Tony. Because my relationship with Tony was rocky. So when I did ayahuasca, I got to see him die multiple times.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So it was like...
Does it feel like... because I had this one experience one time with... It was a cupcake. It was an edible... THC cupcake, but I've never had done any type of THC in my life, so I think my receptor cells were extremely fresh. And when I took it, I just went into like these different dimensions, and but it felt like I was a out of body experience. I wasn't awake. It was like I was knocked out, but I can still see all these different things. Yeah. Was it where you were aware that you're awake and they're like visual, like you're walking around, or were you just laying on the ground visualizing this?
You're laying on the ground and you're having visions.
Because for some reason I always picture like people in ayahuasca like tripping out and stuff, climbing trees and stuff. That's why you have to have someone like watching you.
You're not allowed to do that. They're taking care of you.
So it's someone. Yeah. So you're literally laying down, and these are the visions you're having in your head.
Yeah, and they feel real.
Yeah,
you know? And you could even like travel like that and go to different places and experience different things.
Do you have control, or is it out of your control?
I think the shaman teaches you how to like fly. He teaches you how to like control and have a beautiful journey. It's not necessarily control, because that's the whole purpose of the medicine, is that you have to surrender.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. Like, I think that's, to be honest, I think that's people's biggest fear of even trying it, is they are afraid of going into the pain, you know?
Yeah, because you want to control your thoughts.
Yeah, you don't want to feel like who wants to see their kid dying over and over again? Like, I remember, like, most people don't remember their dreams. We dream all the time. Yeah. But I remember this specific nightmare when I was like 8 years old, and it was me watching my mom die. It was someone threw a grenade into our beater car that I still remember the car. I still remember everything very, very vividly, exactly how it happened. Mm-hmm. And it was very traumatic for me. And because of that, that's like the only dream that I remember to this day. And I'm 35 years old. So it felt real. So I can imagine how those traumatic experiences while you're under, you know, the influence of the plant could feel extremely real.
It feels real, but at the same time, you're having a healing journey where you're understanding where these fears are coming from. And understanding that death is part of life. We're all stamped with death the moment we're born. Yeah. You know, and death is part of life, and it's a beginning to a new life. Yeah. You know, so I think it's just us not understanding that it's okay to let go. Mm-hmm. And it's okay, because that person still gets to be part of our life. You know, at least that was my experience, and that life was short, and it was like too short to be living in conflict. Yeah. You know, so I knew that I was going to go through a hard journey with Tony, because I seen it in ayahuasca. Yeah. But I didn't understand what it was actually preparing me for.
Yeah. Now, it's very interesting that you said, you know, going into this, you knew you had a lot of trauma that you needed to handle. What was your life growing up like that caused these traumas? And up to this point, were you already involved into the holistic, or was this like the catalyst? Was this like the thing that caused you?
This is where my awakening happened.
Okay. Yeah. So let's talk about before the awakening. What led up to that?
So before my awakening, I was very angry.
Okay. You know, I was angry. That's what Tony talks about all the time. Yeah. My mom was crazy.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in a rough neighborhood, and I was pregnant at 18.
Okay, so you were
I was a young mom
growing up in the hood.
His dad was in and out of prison all the time. And
was he in gangs, or what was the cause of him going in and out of prison?
Yeah, he was in gangs, and he was verbally and physically abusive, you know. Mm-hmm. And I had the opportunity to play soccer because I played soccer. Yeah. Yeah, so I went to a college right there in Wilmington. And I played soccer with the team, so the team was pretty cool. They would carry Tony around because I was the only 19-year-old with a baby. Yeah, yeah. So we would dress him up with school colors. he was actually pretty good. Yeah, yeah. We would put him on a stroller, and he would just sit there and watch us. You know,
that's funny.
Yeah, coach would like take care of him while we were. The only hard part was going away. Mm-hmm. When we had go away games. And he had to stay with his dad or my mom or somebody. So it was hard. I couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah. So you stopped playing soccer?
I stopped playing soccer, and I stopped going to school because it was just a hostile environment.
Yeah, I can see. So So Tony's dad is going in and out of prison. Are both of your kids with Tony's dad?
Yeah.
Okay. So you have 2 kids. You're raising them by yourself, essentially.
I didn't learn the first time.
It happens. We don't learn the first time sometimes too, you know. We're all human. Now, you're raising 2 kids pretty much on your own. You're growing up in these environments where it's hostile, and clearly, you know, Tony was a byproduct of his environment as well. I mean, they call him the Mike Tyson of MMA because of his upbringing, you know. So it affects everybody, you know. And I tell people this all the time, you know, your environment is what's going to affect a lot of your psychology. You know, they call this process, you know, nature and nurture. You know, how you're raised is one thing, but you're nurtured, but your nature, the environment that you're in will affect you. If you're surrounded by nothing but gangs and drugs and just bad shit, you're going to think that's just the normal way to live. And we become a byproduct of our environment where we surround ourselves. So it's very, very common, you know, to fall in that trap where he's going to end up being in and out of prison just like his dad.
Well, when Tony was born, well, actually, when I got to hold Tony for the first time, I knew my life was going to change. I was like, I don't want this lifestyle for him. And so that's when my problem started with him, because I wanted better. I wanted to get out. I wanted an education. I wanted this. And he would always tell me, don't forget where you come from, you know. And he would try to bring,
Tony's dad. His name's Tony as well?
No.
Oh, okay.
Jose.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He would try to
So he would try to hold you back.
He would try to hold me back. Yeah. But that didn't stop me.
Yeah.
So I left Wilmington and I moved out with my parents, and that was hard. And then I got pregnant again. Yeah. And then I never went back to living that lifestyle.
Now, when you say living that lifestyle, were you involved in drugs, gangs?
No, I was never involved.
Okay.
Yeah.
You were just fighting a lot, or what?
Yeah. Well, we had to survive.
Yeah. Okay. All right, cool.
Yeah.
So, so once you had your kids, what was Tony like as a child? Was he rebellious towards you, or what kind of relationship did you guys have?
Tony's always been a loving baby.
Really?
Yeah.
Look at him.
He just started.
I can see all his pictures. He's like a little sweetheart, huh?
He's always been a sweetheart. He has a beautiful heart.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's just curious about everything. He would watch a movie, and he still does that till this day, where he watches a movie and he can relate to it, and then he just makes it his reality, and then he starts thinking that he's like the person on TV.
Yeah.
That was Tony. Like, he watched Spider-Man. He threw himself down the stairs, and he went. I bought him a Spider-Man outfit. He went, whoosh, and then he just went, whoop.
He thought a web was gonna pop out.
Yeah, and then he landed. I thought he was gonna break his face.
Yeah,
because he went down the stairs like boom, boom, boom.
Oh my God.
And then
I used to do it all the time.
Oh my God, bro.
Mom, this doesn't work. So I didn't allow him to watch TV.
Oh, okay.
He was the Hulk. I was the Hulk.
He was a Hulk. He tried to break my chairs.
Oh my God. You're like, oh, smash. You're all smashing all the flowers and pottery all over the house.
Yeah. He thought he was every character in the movie.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So I didn't allow him to even have a phone until he was 16?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Was he very competitive from a young age, or did
did
that start once he was fighting?
He was so competitive that he couldn't play in a team. So I played soccer, so I wanted him to play soccer, right?
Yeah.
So I signed him up for soccer. He wanted to beat up the coach. He wanted to beat up the teammates. He wanted to beat up everybody. He threw his cleats at the coach, and I was like, why are you so mad? So then he asked the coach to make him a goalie. Yeah. Because he hated losing. Yeah. So he's like, nobody's going to score on me. And that was his mission. And then they took him out of the goalie and they put the actual goalie. Yeah. And he was like, this coach is stupid. And then he was just throwing a fit. And I'm like, do you want to fight? And he's like, yes. And I was like, okay, let's go. Let's go. But he reminded me a lot of his dad. Okay. You know, they were like sore losers. Like his dad, when he played baseball, he would hit people with the ball. Oh my God. Like if you lost? Yes. Okay. Yeah. He would go straight to. Yeah. I'm not that. To violence. Straight to violence. And then when he would play sports with his dad, they would fight with each other. Oh my God. Yeah.
He's like, his dad's never going to let him win, and you're never going to, like, not lose.
Yeah. And then he would come back and crying, oh, he said that I can't play anymore.
That's funny. Yeah. That's interesting that, you know, you see these characteristics from such a young age that are required for long-term success, you know, because you have to be a bit stubborn in your goals and in your belief system of succeeding. You have to be competitive, because without competition, you can't get better, you can't grow. So wanting to be the best makes you strive for the best, which is a good thing. You know, when did you realize for Tony that fighting MMA was going to be an outlet for him to use this anger or rage or whatever you want to call it in a positive way?
When he was 10 and I signed him up at the UFC gym, and he came back home and he's like, I signed myself up for a competition. And I'm like, who's going to pay for that? And he's like, you are. It's $25. Go pay for it. And he won his first competition. And the reason I thought it was really good for him is because I seen a lot of his dad in him. Yeah. And so I wanted to turn it into a positive thing for him, because I was like, if I don't do this, then this kid's going to end up in prison. Yeah. Yeah. And I didn't want that for my kid. I loved him too much to see him go down that route, and I didn't leave his dad for no reason, you know?
Yeah. Did, so it was his passion that kind of almost forced you to be like, okay, this is going to be the outlet.
It was his passion, and he said that he was going to be a fighter, and that his main goal was to be a world champion. And so my way of being is like, if you tell me you want to do something, I'm gonna hold you accountable. Mm-hmm. So I would hold him accountable. Yeah. So I would make sure he was in practice every single day. If I couldn't pick him up, then I would tell him walk. Yeah. You know, because or you can run to the gym. You need conditioning anyways. Yeah. You know? And I know he thought I was hard on him, but it was just building character, you know?
Yeah. And this is from the age of 10 on.
I think when I started letting him run to the gym, he was probably like 12 or 13. Yeah.
Okay.
It was like 5 miles.
So it's not a little brisk walk.
You can run that. You can run that.
That's cool. He mentions a story when he wanted to quit one time that you kind of slapped him back into reality. Do you remember that?
Yeah, because Tony's not the type to be like, I want to quit. He's the type that's like, I don't want to do this anymore. You don't understand. He's very dramatic. Yeah. And he would get on my nerves because he was just so dramatic, where I was just like, shut up.
That's funny. That reminds me a lot of like a young Mike Tyson. He was the exact same way. Like every time, like he would go into these emotional bursts of wanting to just quit and go back into the hood and just start robbing people. And like, he's like, it's over. Like it's all done. He used to like cry before his fights and stuff. This is when he was very young, before he became a pro. Once he became a pro, it's a different story. But most young fighters, when they have this burning desire in them and they want to let it out, and there's something in their way, the frustration is one of the big pits that a lot of them get to. They feel like something's stopping them, so they just want to say, man, screw it. But that's good that he had positive role models and people that could hold him accountable to be where he's at today.
Well, I was crazy too. I would like throw a fit if nobody could take me to the gym. And then my mom, like, if I was being bad in school, she'd be like, you can't go to the gym no more.
That was like your punishment.
Dude, I was able to hold that against him, and it worked. Yeah. I was like, yes, finally.
I remember I cried at school.
Because you couldn't go to the gym?
Because she said that to me on the phone at school because I was being bad, and I think my teacher made me call her.
Oh, my God. They already knew how to get you, huh?
Yeah.
The teacher's like, call his mom.
I started crying, and then they were like, why are you crying? Like, trying to make fun of me and shit. Yeah. I was like, I got all mad. I was like, what's up? Like,
you're going to fight with the teacher and whoever?
No, not the teacher, the students.
Oh, they were seeing you crying?
He was just emotional. Well, he's always been emotional. So he, like, as soon as he reacts to something, he's reacting with his emotions. Yeah. So I would always tell him, like, calm down. Like, you know, like, just let it happen, and then we can talk about it. But he's like, I want to answer now. I want to fix it.
Where do you think that came from, Tony?
What?
The emotional side, you know, was it anger? Was it frustration? And the reason I ask is because a lot of times young kids that don't have a father, that come from single parent households, have this kind of anger about them. And, you know, it's kind of a common thing. But a lot of the times they're not aware of it. They're like, oh, he's just a bad kid, you know, but they don't know at home he's getting beaten, or like he's going through all this trauma, or he has like a really shitty life, and he's just taking out that frustration on other people around them. Or sometimes they'll explode out of nowhere because they hold it all in. Are you aware of where that came from, or is it just you're not sure?
My dad.
Your dad?
Yeah.
So it was like resentment towards him?
Yeah. I'll kind of like blame my mom for everything.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because I was having a conversation with my friend the other day, and I told him, you know, that I've been working on this issue for a long time, the same anger, like it would come out of nowhere and it would cause a lot of destruction in my life, where I would hold things in for a long time and then I would explode and just, you know, hurt people. Yeah. And he told me that it comes from, you know, from my mother. He's like, you have some kind of anger towards your mother. You need to forgive her. Like, I was like, no, it's not. Like, my mom was the best mom ever. He's like, well, maybe she was too loving. And I was like, oh, yeah, she was way too overbearing. Like, yeah, you're right. She used to bite me. My mom loved me so much that she used to bite me. Like, until I was like, I had enough. I was like 8 years old, like, stop biting me. And I started like yelling at her and shit, crying.
Were you like those chubby kids?
I was a little chubby kid, yeah. So she used to like, she thought I was all cuddly and stuff, but she would like, you know, you love something so much, she would bite me. I was like, you're crazy, man. So I do think that a lot of the emotional outburst of a boy to become a man, to get it under control, you need to find out where it's coming from, you know, and that's good to be aware of it so that you can address it. And I think these plant medicines do that. For most people, they're unconscious. So once they take something that makes them become aware of what they've gone through, you can finally address it. It's like, you know, I had an uncle that was always complaining about being sick. And when he finally went to the hospital, they're like, you got like 3 weeks left to live, brother. You got like stage 4 cancer. Oh, wow. So you have to take care of these aches and pains that are in your life, because if you don't, they're going to balloon to a point where they explode. And that's how a lot of these kids repeat the same pattern. Mm-hmm. That anger and that, oh, are you ready to fight now? Can lead to a gun. It can link to this or that. Mentality. Yeah, exactly. So I'm glad that, you know, you were able to help Tony in his transition from a boy to a man. But at the same time, I know during this period, Tony kind of went into the dark side and he got addicted to, it was fentanyl, right? Do you remember this time in his life, and what was going on with you, and what was the dynamic between you two during that time? Maybe you can talk about that as well.
I think that I was just like, at that time, I wasn't looking at the stuff that I had. I was looking more so at the stuff that I didn't have, and it made me rebellious, like made me angry, because I was just really ungrateful for my life. And everything.
That makes a lot of sense. So you were envisioning of the things that you wanted, you didn't have them, so you're focusing on what you didn't have.
Yeah, I just turned like bad. Like I was like, you know, ungrateful, basically towards God. Like I think I kind of turned my back on God a little bit, and I had to learn the hard way, you know, that's not what I wanted for my life.
I think it's more comparison, like what his friends had that he didn't have. And his excuse was always like, well, they have a dad. And I was like, and you have a mom.
Yeah.
You know?
That shit would make me mad.
And he would be like, well, so-and-so is good at wrestling because his dad is a coach.
Well, because they would kind of like rub it in my face, like, oh, look at what my dad got me or some shit like that.
Yeah.
He was just a weenie.
I'll be like, oh, mad. I'll be like, fuck you.
He was like, okay.
I had a victim mindset, where I didn't want to go out and get shit. I wanted somebody, I wanted that love, and I wanted somebody to give it to me. And then I had to learn that, like, fucking, I have to do that for myself. Like,
it's entitlement. It's, you know, you see that a lot in kids nowadays.
A lot.
But it's entitlement, and it has a lot to do with being compared to others, what they have and what you don't have. You know, it's just more like materialistic, physical stuff that you want, you know, especially when you're growing up, or you see that so-and-so's wearing like $200 shoes and you have Walmart shoes or something, you know?
Yeah.
Because I gave them everything. Mm-hmm. I just didn't give them what they wanted.
Yeah. It's funny because like I grew up in the ghetto too. And when I was really young, I never realized that I was poor because everybody else had the same Walmart shoes. You know, everybody else had the same government cheese. Everybody had the same shit, you know, the same shitty situation we were all in that whole neighborhood. And I was kind of isolated from the outside world because this was before the internet. This was before I didn't have no iPhone. I didn't have anything. So it was literally you play with like the rocks and sticks and balls and stuff like that.
Canicas.
Yeah, exactly. So once I was exposed that, holy shit, there's people that have all this other stuff that I don't have, then you start to get those feelings like, hey, why do they have that and I don't? And you do get that victim mentality and that like envy and like, why do they have that and I don't? And that can be very, very dangerous.
I turn into a really ugly person.
Yeah, like if you start to envy other people's things, you want to take it from them instead of you building your own. And it's so frustrating for a kid because they really can't do much. It's not like they're like, especially if you're talking about, you know, physical monetary things. They can't buy anything. You're a kid. So what do they lead to? Like, well, let me rob it. Let me take it. Let me figure out how to make money quick. And that's where the drug dealing and the other stuff come involved in the gangs.
But I think for him, it was more like when he started doing some type of drug, it clouded his mind. So it made him more into a victim, you know, than anything else. So he was just like, oh, feel sorry for me. This is why I'm on drugs.
What?
Or my dad wasn't here. This is why I'm on drugs. Or
do you remember the first time you started taking drugs, Tony?
Yeah.
What was the catalyst to that? Was it just like curiosity? Someone offered it to you? Was it you were trying to escape? What was it that led to it? And what do you think led to the addiction as well?
Well, for one, I was hanging out with the wrong people. And what led me to drugs? Probably like depression.
You were depressed.
Trying to escape my reality.
What kind of tip can you give to a young kid that's maybe going through the same situation that you were at that time, now that you are where you are?
Find a purpose, find a passion, and fucking that shit will make you happier than any drug.
Okay.
That's just real happiness, because when you do drugs, you feel happy for a little bit, and then it goes away, and then now you feel like even worse than you felt before you took the drug, and then you just keep digging a fucking big-ass hole for yourself, and sooner or later you're going to have to jump in that bitch because you're dead.
That's crazy. Do you remember when Tony was in that whole situation? What was your observance from the outside in?
Well, we did therapy. And he even got to the point where he said that I would pay the therapist to side me. And that's funny. No, I would talk to him, and it was like he wouldn't listen. It was just like he was just more into his thoughts and into his emotions that he got so out of hand that I had to sit down and ask him to leave my house.
So you had to kick him out?
I had to kick him out. I didn't want to kick him out.
Damn, how did that feel? And how was that experience?
I was sitting there crying, and he just looked at me and said, okay.
You didn't care?
No. And I was like, you're breaking my heart right now. Mm-hmm. But I didn't tell him that. I just felt it. And my therapist is the one that suggested for me to, it had to be me to tell him to leave.
Yeah.
Not my husband. Mm-hmm. You know, I wanted him to do it. I was like,
at this point, had you already done plant medicine when this happened?
Yeah, I already had done plant medicine.
Let's go back a little bit. At what age was Tony when you had that first experience where you say you were awakened?
That was in 2018. So how old were you?
17.
17?
Yeah.
And at what age did you get involved with the whole addiction?
I think he got worse at 17.
At that same time as you were going through your spiritual awakening, he was going into the darkness.
He was going into the darkness, but I knew.
You were aware of it.
I was already aware that I was going to go through that transition with him.
Okay.
I already had.
So, okay, I see. Yeah. I see what you're saying. So you envisioning him dying had a lot to do with his addiction.
Yeah.
Before it even happened.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So he wasn't really like full blown addicted when you experienced all that stuff.
No, not yet.
So in a essence, you were prepared for that.
I prepared for that, and then at the same time, it prepared me to prepare him.
Tell me about that.
So it was more like I healed. It's like I healed that side of me. So when we did go through that journey, mm-hmm. it was easier for him to come to plant medicine because I had cut a lot of cords and lineage traumas.
Yeah.
And so when he actually he didn't leave, I told him to leave.
Yeah.
And I want to go drop him off with Coach Sam.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when he was living in Moreno Valley for like 6 months. Was it 6 months?
I don't remember.
6 months to almost a year.
Yeah. Were you still fighting at that time?
No.
I fought in Portugal.
He fought in okay, so we still so listen to this. We still paid for him to go to Portugal because I was like, he has to. I know that this is his dream.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna let him fail. And my husband's like, why are you gonna let him go? You know, you shouldn't. But then he still helped me send him. Yeah. And so we sent him to Portugal.
I won nationals, so they wanted me to compete at Worlds.
Yeah.
And he showed up. So we were leaving. He showed up 2 hours before I had to go drop him off.
At the airport?
No, at the house.
Oh, shoot.
He hadn't packed. He hadn't done anything. He was probably on something. Mm-hmm. And I was talking smack to him, like, what the heck, Tony? You know, like.
Yeah.
And then he was just like, oh, why are you tripping? He's like, you're always talking shit. And then I was like,
retarded, huh?
That's funny.
And so I dropped him off at the airport, and I was still talking shit on my way to the airport. And then I told him, don't lose your money. Don't do everything I told him don't do is the first thing he want to go do.
I didn't lose my money.
I told him I told him don't change your money at the airport because they're going to charge you. And that's the first thing he want to go do. Yeah. He's like, oh, they taxed me. And then when I tried to get my money back, she told me no. And I was like, well, why would she give it back to you?
That's funny.
And I was like, you know what? I'm not even going to deal with this. I'm just going to let him be.
Yeah.
He left. He did good when he was out there, but when he came back, he went back to the same
environment. You know, he was out there for a purpose.
Yeah.
And when he came back, he had, I guess, no purpose. Now,
well, it's because it was COVID too. I couldn't even fight, so I had like basically no purpose. So I was just dumb. Fighting. I was dumb. I was.
How long were you in that whole world of, you know, addiction and just street fighting and just living that hard life? How long did that whole thing last? And also, what was it that caused you to see the light and, you know, pursue?
It was almost like 3 years, but
3 years.
Yeah, I remember one time. This is when my life changed, right? I smoked weed, and then I got up, and I went to this guy that I was living with. I was living in the shed, and I told him, I'm going to go home right now. I was like, take me home. And he was like, why? I came up with some stupid-ass story that wasn't even true. Yeah. I was like, you got to take me home right now. And then I remember I got home, and then I had, like, my suitcase and everything. And then I knocked on the door, and my mom opened it. She was like, what? And I was like, I want to change my life. And then she's like, come inside. And then that's when, like, I started to, like, detox off of drugs. And then we still had, like, a rough-ass patch because the drugs, like, really messed up my head, like, really bad. Like,
what was the detox process like? How long did it take, and what were your sensations and thoughts during that time? Because
like a year and a half.
A year and a half of detox?
That was a year and a half of torture.
I mean,
for my mom, and my stepdad and my sister
and Katrina.
What was it? His psychological outburst, or was it what was it?
Because Tony wasn't. I don't know how to explain this, but Tony wasn't in this dementia. He was like,
I was basically like
in another world,
schizophrenic.
Really?
Yeah.
You know, he would write notes and he would write things over and over.
Oh, okay.
And then he would.
So he was almost in a psychosis.
Yeah, he would literally have the same conversation for 8 hours. It was like he was like, I'm God, I'm this, and then he would talk about how he knew he was God, and I was like, okay, Tony, you already told me that. And then 10 minutes later, he's like, do you want to know how I know I'm God? And I was like, oh my God, this guy doesn't stop. Honestly, I give.
Do you remember that?
I give credit to Coach Joe. Because he had long car rides.
Yeah.
With me.
And he would have to listen to that.
You were telling him the whole time you were God?
Yes.
I was crazy.
Were you the devil at any time?
Well, you know what's the truth?
He went from
He's
being
like, I'm the devil.
We are God and the devil.
He went from being the devil, and then he went from being God. Then he went from being the conqueror, and then he stayed as a conqueror.
He stayed the conqueror?
I'm still, I have God in me, you know?
Yeah.
We're all God. All of us in one are God.
It's funny you say that, because everybody that has a psychedelic experience always comes back with that same feeling that we're all connected. And if we are all connected, then essentially we do have God within us. And if you look at it as a scientific viewpoint, the current state of science states that we all were at one point, at the point of creation, we were all condensed to a tiny little dot smaller than an atom. And from that potential, everything exploded into the universe. And that's what created everything we see. So we are all connected at one point. Everything is energy. And on a quantum world, energy is just a vibration, you know? So we are essentially God, because we are connected to that same source. And I was having this conversation with my last guest, is tapping into the God source, which is that ultimate truth and knowing and good, which I think a lot of people do when they take plant medicine. They tap into that God source and they figure out how to rectify their wrongs, redeem themselves, and focus on something good, which is what you're doing now. So what was like the first experience when you decided to, you know, do a ceremony with your mom? I know you talked about it a little bit on some of our past podcasts, but I'm gonna give you the opportunity to kind of go into detail on how that led up and what that experience was like and what came after that.
Well, first I started with Hoppe, and when I took Hoppe, I was sweating profusely, like all the toxins that I had in my body. And then from there, opportunity to do Wachuma came around, and I remember that was my first ceremony ever, but I was always willing to go to the deepest, darkest parts of myself, just so I could change and be a better person. I think that's like the best thing about me, is that I'm not scared to change.
He's not.
You're like, give it to me.
I want
full dose.
I want to change, you know. I don't want to be a bad person. I want to be a good person. But I remember I was sitting there, and
where was it?
In Tahoe.
Your first Hoppe ceremony was at home?
No, I already passed the Hoppe. I'm in Wachuma.
Oh, yeah. No, actually, we went to go do...
yeah, but that one didn't work for
me. We did Gambo, but I thought of Gambo...
Is that the frog one?
Yeah, so I thought of Gambo because it cleanses your liver, and it cleanses the body, and I felt like that's what he needed. Like
after I did Gambo, was that when I came back from Moreno Valley already? I never did fentanyl again.
That was the stop to your addiction.
Yeah, complete. So, all right, let me talk about that. We did combo and we did bufo, right, which I respect and thank you. And I took the combo, and it's on my arm still. And I started to throw up like a bunch of like yellow stuff, like mucus. It was nasty. And I was throwing up for like, I don't know how long, like 40 minutes.
We were there for a while, yeah. Wow. I was just holding space for him. I didn't do combo with him that time.
I was drinking a gallon of water, just throwing up. And then she wanted me to do bufo with her. Yeah. But the day before we went, I actually took Molly. I took a dose of Molly. Yeah. I think I just wasn't ready for bufo yet. Yeah. Like something in me. So then we had the bufo ceremony, and I kind of just went into like all I saw was really darkness. But I think I went into my ego. I saw my ego, and I was like, I'm the best. And I was screaming that I was the best fighter. Like, I felt like I was the best fighter in the world. Yeah. And like, I was flexing, and I felt like amazing. Like, I achieved everything.
Was he without a shirt flexing?
No, he was yelling like that he was going to be the world champion. He seen himself with like 3 belts.
Yeah. 4 belts.
Yeah. 4 belts.
Okay.
And
4 belts.
I was screaming.
Did you have any belts at that time?
No.
I had nothing.
Yeah.
I was like going crazy, you know? And then my mom was just like crying because she was going through her stuff with me. And then that was the first one. Then the second one is when we went to Wachuma. Yeah. And this is, so after that ceremony, I never did fentanyl again, but I still had a lot of bad thoughts that just kept like, I was so weak-minded, like a thought would come into my head and I just believed it, you know? And like a lot of thoughts come into your head, and you just, sometimes I start to go like deep into my thoughts. I'm like, wait, my reality is so much better than what I'm making it right now in my head. Yeah. So I was weak-minded, and we went to Wachuma, and I sat there, and it felt like I was in hell. Like I was just sitting there, and all those negative thoughts that I ever thought just came and blasted me in the head. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking the worst things ever. I'm thinking that my mom's not my mom. She brought me there. And that after the ceremony, they're going to kill me.
Yeah.
Thinking like the worst, all the stuff that the drugs did to me, because fentanyl is an energy, right? And when you put that inside of you, you become that drug.
Yeah.
It's just weird. It's just really weird.
It puts you in a certain frequency, you know, like when you take, let's say, alcohol, your cells in your body start vibrating at a different frequency. So you can't tap into something. Your thought process is not on a positive, uplifting, spiritual, awakened frequency. It's like tuning into the radio. Mm-hmm. Like I want to hear Power 106, but I'm on 93.1. Like I'm not going to hear that shit ever. I'm not going to hear, Biggie. I'm going to hear whatever 93.1 has. So in order to tap into that God source that we talk about, that is going to allow you to elevate, you need to create processes in your life in order to be in the right state of mind and in the right frequency physically as well. Drugs do the complete opposite. They put you in a negative, shitty frequency.
Yeah. So I'm just thinking all this crazy stuff, negative stuff. And then after the ceremony, I feel peaceful. I'm like, I feel like I just want to like love everybody and just like, thank you, you know? And then after that, like, I remember I got home and I was kind of mad. And then, but a couple days later, I never had those thoughts again.
Really?
Never had those thoughts. And I remember like months went by and I just looked back and I was like, I don't think the same no more.
Which medicine was this?
Wachuma.
Was this the last ceremony you had?
No. So then I kept having, I did a couple more, I think. Yeah, I did like two more.
It took me like a year and a half.
Yeah.
But with Wachuma, since Wachuma is like a masculine energy, it's like the grandfather. Mm-hmm. So it was very gentle, you know, and I felt like he needs to go directly to the source, you know. Yeah. But before all of this, going a little bit back, I had originally booked myself to go back to Peru. Mm-hmm. I think it was in 2020 or 2019. But then COVID happened. Yeah. So I couldn't go. And I had everything paid for, flight, everything. Yeah. And then this happened with him. And then they finally opened up everything. Mm-hmm. And then he was going through his awakening. Yeah. And then I said, this is not for me. I paid for it, but it was never meant for me.
It was for him.
It was for him.
It was like all set up. Like if I think if I would have went straight into ayahuasca, it would have been a disaster. Yeah. But I had to like warm up to it. Yeah. Because I was still, even though I was still kind of using drugs, but not fentanyl. I was doing like cocaine and shit like that. Yeah. And then ayahuasca came around. She told me, "Do you want to go do ayahuasca?" I said, "Of course." And then I did a diet for like, what was it, like 2 months or a month?
3 weeks. But the thing is that before he went to go do ayahuasca, I said, Tony, this is my last resource. Yeah. If this doesn't help you, I don't know what else to do, because I'm doing everything that I feel like should work and help you. And he still had his little things here and there that, you know, he would make it real in his head. Yeah. So I was like, okay, I have this flight, but you're going to go, right? And don't mess it up. Don't do anything dumb. And the first thing he does is lose his passport.
That's funny.
When he got to Peru, he lost
right when he got there?
Yes.
Jesus.
I'm like, how do you do that? Yeah. But then I'm like, he would do things unconsciously. Yeah. Like trying to like jeopardize like
sabotage maybe.
Like sabotage his his experience, like so he could be like, oh, I didn't make it because of that. Yeah. You know.
I didn't mean to do it.
It could be subconscious, unconscious. Like a lot of people do that. They sabotage relationships. They sabotage job opportunities. They sabotage business opportunities because they're afraid of the responsibility or they're afraid of the outcome. Mm-hmm. Some people are afraid of success, believe it or not. Yeah. They rather be homeless. A lot of the people that are on Skid Row want to be there. It's not like they don't have other options. A lot of them have family that will go and drop off food for them, give them money, and be like, "Come on, come home." They're like, "Nah, I'm good here. This is home." They don't want responsibilities of, people telling them what to do, how to live their life. That's their lifestyle. It's a very low vibration, and the bottom as low as you get, but they want to be there because they're afraid, and they're afraid to face those fears. So not saying that you did that consciously, it could have been subconscious, but this is your mom's experience from the outside. So you get there, you lose your passport, but you're able to still do the ceremony.
Yeah, I still did all the ceremonies. They ended up finding my passport at the airport.
Still lucky like that. And they charged him what, $90 to ship it back to him?
That's it.
Yeah.
That's cheap.
Yeah.
But wait, I was on a budget.
Oh, okay.
So I told him, like, use your money wisely, you know, like, because, things get expensive, once you stay in a hotel and you go eat and you're on a certain diet and stuff. So he didn't even know how to tell me. Actually, the facilitator from the place texted me, and he's like, oh, he reminds me of me when I was 18 years old, and I'm like, that's not an excuse. That's his passport. Imagine if they wouldn't find it. How long would it take for him to come back?
Yeah, he would have been stuck there.
I would have been cool there.
Yeah, like just doing a bunch of ayahuasca.
Would have been in the jungle.
Living in a hammock.
Working.
He's like, I'm a panther.
I ain't going home anymore.
I didn't want to come back home.
That's crazy.
When I was out there, I didn't want to come back home.
When you did that experience, did you have any wins under your belt on your amateur?
I had
career?
one.
You had one?
Two. Did I fight? I fought in Arkansas, and I fought at Dan Henderson's.
But that was before. That
was before ayahuasca.
Really?
Yeah.
So after
when
ayahuasca,
we went to Arkansas, you hadn't done ayahuasca yet.
So once you came back from the ayahuasca ceremony, did you see any change in your fight game, or was it more just on a spiritual and, or did you get more disciplined? Did you see any difference? For both of you,
I did.
I became more I became the person that I am today. Like
when I picked him up from the airport, I just looked into his eyes and I said, okay, my kid's back.
Okay. So you saw immediately the change in him.
Oh, yeah. He was here. He was present. He wasn't flying wherever he was at before.
That's awesome.
That's crazy.
Now, did you always see the potential in Tony as far as his MMA career?
Yeah.
Or was it like a gradual thing that just popped out of nowhere because of these experiences? Or did he always have that talent for fighting?
He always had the talent. He's always been very talented. Anything that he sets his mind to, he will do it. Like, he'll give his 100%.
It's crazy. I was just watching. I think it was you who recorded the video of him training with Sean Strickland.
Yeah.
Was that you that was talking and recording?
Was it me?
Yeah, it was you.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the voice sounds familiar. I was like, I think that was your mom talking. And it's I was even telling Tony, like, it's so crazy to see Sean Strickland, the current champ in the UFC, and Tony Cortez, the rising star in Combate Global. And even back then, he was a little, how old were you right there? You look so small.
I was like 12 or
12
13.
years old.
Yeah,
or 14.
he was 12. And I was like,
and Sean Strickland must have been, what, like
he was
15, 16?
Nah.
No.
Like
He's
18?
way older than me.
He is?
Yeah.
I don't even know his age.
22,
No.
he's like 30-something.
Okay, so he must have been like in his early 20s.
Yeah, he was a very handsome guy. So I was like, go,
he had his little chongo and stuff.
Yeah, I was like,
She had a big crush on him.
That's funny.
Yeah,
That's
and I would
weird.
be like, go so I can record you. Hey, I was single.
What I was telling Tony is that even so many years ago, you can see who they were going to become. Like their style, the raw potential was there. You can see it, like, man, these guys are going to be great. And then to see them today, how they've evolved, they've mastered their style and they've mastered their skill. So they're professionals now. Yeah. And to refine that type of skill, it takes so much work. So much work that people never see. They don't see the hours and hours of training and the hours of, contemplating in your head.
So what ayahuasca did for me was make me mentally stronger. Because I remember I literally met an alien. He said, you have to be stronger. I swear.
Yeah.
And then the shaman actually came to me the next day.
Yeah.
And then he just told me, he said, you have to be stronger mentally.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had a vision, right, where I became an eagle. And I was flying over like this war, and it was like robots like that, motherfucker, just walking, like marching. Yeah. And I saw the war that was going on.
Like in Star Wars and shit.
Because it's an internal war, like in humanity. It's like technology and the spirit. And they don't go together. Yeah. Not really, you know? And then, so I'm like looking at this. I'm like, I'm gonna kill these fucking robots. Yeah. So I start to kill these robots. And shit. And then I start thinking, I'm gonna get shot. And then I get shot. And then I come back into my body. And then I'm like, damn, this shit is easy. So it's like whatever you're thinking is whatever's gonna come to fruition. Yeah. Like you gotta really think and believe that you're gonna do what you're gonna do. Yeah. It's so easy. And then obviously you gotta work for it. Yeah. But I love training. I love doing what I do. So it's easy. Like I'm gonna fucking win everything that I do.
Yeah, what's his name? Anthony is Anthony Hopkins the motivational speaker guy? Anthony Robbins, big motivational speaker, always talks about the story that you tell yourself. You know, the story that you tell yourself is what's going to become your reality. And people that are victims, that's their reality. They like, woe is you. Well, yeah, woe is you. You know. And people that have this mindset of the opposite, it becomes a reality, and they have this confidence and this bravado about them that some people may call like arrogant, but it's not arrogance. If you look at the energy that's behind it, it's complete confidence and belief in oneself. Like Conor McGregor has that. Like you name these top people, like Floyd Mayweather has that. It is not arrogance. It's this belief system that no one can penetrate. Like you're not going to do shit because I'm going to succeed no matter what. You can never stop me. And it's very attractive energy source. And it's a frequency that you need to succeed in this world with accomplishing your goals. And Tony definitely has that. And obviously gets that from you as well.
He's always been like that since he was little. So my way of doing things with him was more like, you can't do that.
Okay, so he can prove you wrong?
Yeah, I bet you can't do that. And he would be like, I'm going to prove you wrong. Yeah. And then he would go do it. And I was like, yes.
That's funny.
She'll tell me, you can't fight like him.
That's funny.
I'll get mad.
What do they call that? Cross psychology, or what is it called? Reverse psychology.
Yeah, because I remember he would just be look at me and he would go, what? And then he would just go do it just to prove me wrong.
And I'll come back with a medal, be like, ah.
And then when I would tell him, I knew you can do it, and he was like, no, you didn't. You said I couldn't.
That's funny.
I like it when people tell me I can't do shit.
Yeah.
You said what?
Well, you know what's crazy is that when I was on drugs and I used to write down everything that I wanted to do, which was like, I'm doing it now. Yeah. And she used to tell me, like, you're crazy. Like, because, I was a drug addict, you know? Yeah. And I used to tell everybody what I wanted to do. Yeah. And then they would kind of look at me and be like, what the fuck's wrong with this kid? Yeah. And I'll be like, watch. I just had like a fire in me. Yeah. Like, watch.
You wanted to prove them wrong.
I'm going to come back and I'm going to prove everybody wrong. And
I'm prove me wrong.
I'm prove everybody wrong.
Well, you know, what you were doing is it's a psychological, and that's not a trick. It's almost like the placebo effect, but it's auto-suggestion, and has been proven to work where you tell yourself like a mantra or a statement over and over and over again until you believe it. What you're doing is you're tapping into your subconscious. So the human mind is a crazy thing. Like if I tell you car, you picture in your head a car, you know. Mm-hmm. If I say dog, you picture a dog barking or whatever in your head. If I say brain or mind, most people picture the brain, which is an organ that's here. But your mind isn't your brain. Your mind is intangible. It could be everywhere. It could be nowhere. It's intangible. And the way that we perceive the world is through our senses. We all have them. We have 5 senses. We have our ability to see. We can see things. We can smell. We can hear. We can taste. We can touch. And through our senses, we observe the world. And when we're awake, we see it. We see, if you grew up, like I said, in the hood, you see people getting shot. You see people fighting every day. You see all that stuff. If you live in a wealthy environment, you see people making big deals, driving on a Ferrari. So you expect to be wealthy. So you'll see these same people repeating these patterns. Now, the conscious mind is your rational thinking. When you're awake and I say 1 + 1 is 2, you can be like, yeah. Now, your subconscious mind has no ability to reject anything you tell it. That's why when people are hypnotized, you can tell them act like a chicken, and they'll act like a chicken. So the hardest part is the conscious mind to make it believe something where you have a really low belief system. So I can be like, I'm going to be a millionaire. I can say that to the world, but if internally I don't believe it, it's probably never going to happen because I don't have the right frequency to get it. In order to change that, to get emotionally involved in believing in your goal, you do have to do a bit of self-auto-suggestion, which is you have to repeatedly tell yourself the thing that you want, but you have to get emotionally involved with it, that you actually believe it. If you say, I'm going to be the world champion, but you have doubt, there's no energy behind that statement. But if you say, I'm going to be the fucking world champion, and you truly believe it with every pore in your body, then you're going to little by little start to do the things that you need to do to get there. One thing is having dreams. The other thing is having a freaking mission in life, a goal, and going after it every single fucking day until you make your dreams into a reality, into truth, into physical form. And that is the alchemy of the mind. Everybody has the ability to do that, but a lot of people don't have the guidance to know how to control those thoughts, you know, and sometimes you learn at a later age, and sometimes you learn very young on, which is why I'm super curious in seeing your evolution. And I told you since the first podcast you came on that I had your back. You had my support and help you in any way I can, because I saw that potential in you. And I've been seeing it, you know, every single fight, your confidence is getting better, you know, more and more. Your skills are getting better. You're getting recognized by the world finally, you know, because it's frustrating, because I've been there where you're fucking grinding and nobody notices. The only people that notice is maybe your mom, your dad, your close relatives. And the outside world might give you like a pat on the back every once in a while, but they don't understand what you're truly doing on the inside, the change that you're going through on the inside. And when you finally start to get that recognition, it's a euphoric feeling. It's like, fuck yeah. Finally, I'm people are starting to notice me, and they're going to see even greater, and it pushes you to do better and better and better. So that's what I see you doing. So what is the future for yourself and your business? What do you plan on doing with, you know, your holistic practice and your business, and how does that incorporate into what you're doing and your career in MMA?
So before I answer those questions, you know how you were talking about how recognition and stuff like that. Tony's always been recognized, like when he was growing up at the gym. His coaches would even use him to go beat up so-and-so, you know. They would be like, go.
He was like the pit bull.
Yeah, he was a little pit bull. But they also wrote an article about him at the gym, and they didn't know his name. And they said, there's this kid, you know, he never blinks. Not even when you punch him. Yeah. And I read it, and I said, Tony, they're talking about you. Yeah. And I think he became one of your first sponsors when he like first started fighting. Yeah. You know, but
his name was Franklin.
His name was Franklin, and he was at the gym, and he actually talked about how he's seen so much potential in him. Yeah. And everybody at the gym would talk about his potential, you know, and everybody's seen it, but he was just very confident about himself. Like, he would sign himself up for tournaments and be like, I know I'm gonna win this. Yeah. Yeah. And just pay for it. Just pay for it. Yeah. I just wanted to share that.
That's awesome. So as far as your holistic practice, what is your goal with it? What's your goal with your business, and where do you see that going?
So my goal in life is I actually want to go to the shaman retreat.
What is that?
It's a retreat where you learn the Icaros and learn how to brew ayahuasca and the dieta and everything that the shaman actually goes through and what they have to do. Do
you become a shaman at the end?
I don't know if you become a shaman at the end, but
you have the skills.
You have the skills to actually hold space for someone. Yeah. And that is my personal goal. Like, that's what I want to do, because I think that's my life purpose.
Do you currently do ceremonies, and what does that look like for the average person that maybe is interested? What would you tell them? What are the steps that they should take in order to get to the point where they are in a position to do a ceremony, and how can they contact you for that?
So I do hold space for certain people that sign up. I hold space for a small group of people, maybe 4 the most, right? Mm-hmm. And the requirements are like, you always have to do a dieta and sacrifice something, right? Like coffee, no sex, no red meat, no smoking, no recreational drugs.
Dang. None of the fun stuff.
No alcohol.
No alcohol.
Yeah.
You have to let go of a lot of things, you know. And I think the hardest thing for people is letting go of coffee. Yeah. It's not even sex.
Yeah.
It's coffee.
Really? More than sex? They're like, I haven't had sex in years. Coffee I drink every day.
Yeah. Or they give me excuses like, oh, it reminds me of my mom, or it reminds me of grandma, or I need it. I can't have energy or something. Yeah. And then when they come into ceremony, they start purging something about mom or grandma or something. And then they realize what void they're trying to fulfill with that cup of coffee.
Yeah. That's crazy. Well, I'd like to open up this part for Tony to maybe ask you some questions that maybe he's never asked you or anything. Yeah. Do you have anything you want to tell your mom or ask your mom?
Well, thank you for everything that you did for me. I know that maybe sometimes I don't make you feel loved, but I love you. That's why I'm going to conquer the motherfucking world.
Awesome, man. Well, I want to thank both of you guys again for coming on the show. Beatrice, for sharing your story and your insight in the holistic world. I'm definitely curious in finding out more. I'm going to start to do a little bit more research myself. I might come see you to do a ceremony or something. But guys, if you are in the high desert and you need any holistic products, what's some of the products that you sell in your store?
So I have CBD oils, CBD creams, teas, coffee, herbal joints. We serve kava.
Nice. Is that the drink that I just had?
Yeah, that's the drink.
Guys, it'll make you feel euphoric without being, without getting a DUI. There you go.
Exactly.
Awesome. Tony, do you know when your next fight's coming up?
Nah, I don't know, but soon, and be ready for a murder scene.
Awesome. Well, I'm super excited.
187.
To see you fight again, and I'm excited to see both of your guys' growth and evolution, and we'll see you guys next time.